May 8, 1945. Late afternoon. Camp B, near the town of Sinzig on the Rhine. A cold spring rain drifts across the barbed wire, turning the muddy compound into a dull mirror of the gray sky. Inside the women's enclosure, 3,000 prisoners of the Greater German Reich, former auxiliaries of the Wehrmacht, Luftwaffe signal helpers, SS overseers, nurses, typists, and factory workers, stand in ragged columns, soaked greatcoats clinging to their bones. Their faces are hollowed by years of ration cards, substitute coffee, and the slow starvation of a nation that had promised them a 1,000-year dawn. Then the gate rolls open. A single American 2.5-ton truck noses through, canvas flaps tied back. 2 GIs in clean OD jump down, followed by a Red Cross captain carrying a wooden crate. He sets it on an ammunition box, pries the lid, and lifts out, slowly, deliberately, a stock of cellophane-wrapped toothbrushes. The bristles are snow white, the handles a bright, almost violent blue and red. One by one, he places them in the outstretched, trembling hands of the first row of women. Silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of something breaking open inside the mind. A young Berlin telegraphist, prisoner number 47-884, stares at the object in her palm as though it were a relic from another planet. Her lips part, but no sound comes. Around her, the same stunned stillness spreads like frost. 3,000 pairs of eyes fixed on a simple toothbrush, new, untouched, individually wrapped, manufactured in a country that still had soap, plastic, dye, and the calm factories working 3 shifts without sirens. This moment mattered because it arrived at the precise hour when the myth of National Socialist invincibility collided with the undeniable reality of defeat. For 12 years, the propaganda ministries had painted America as a decadent jazz nation of gangsters and Jews, a culture too soft, too greedy, too distracted to fight. Yet here, in the mud of a Rhine prison camp, that same America handed its enemies not bullets, but hygiene. Mass-produced, superfluous, cheerful hygiene. The toothbrush became the smallest possible unit of proof that the Reich had lost not merely battles, but the industrial and moral capacity to care for its own people. German women had grown accustomed to privation as a patriotic virtue. By early 1945, the official toothpaste ration was 1 tube every 4 months, if the pharmacy still had any. Most brushed with salt, with ash, with nothing at all. Dental care had become a distant memory. Rotting teeth were accepted the way one accepted bomb craters in the street. In the final months, even the elite SS Helferin Corps received toothbrushes made of splintered wood and boar bristles so stiff they drew blood. Now, suddenly, an enemy who had just flattened their cities was giving them something their own Führer could no longer provide. The contrast was unbearable. One former concentration camp guard, Oberaufseherin Elisabeth Folkenrath, later hanged at Hamelin, stood in that same line. Survivors of Belsen would remember her clutching the American toothbrush like a guilty talisman, unable to meet the eyes of the British nurse who handed it over. American records from the 104th Infantry Division note that when the crates were emptied, several women spontaneously began to cry, not from gratitude, but from shame. A U.S. Army dentist attached to the 104th wrote in his diary that night, "They looked at the brushes the way we look at gold. One girl whispered in perfect English, 'We thought you would shoot us. Instead, you give us this.'" The toothbrush, that trivial artifact of daily life, became the recurring symbol of a civilization that could still afford waste. Waste in the best sense, the luxury of giving away thousands of new items to defeated enemies because the assembly lines back home had not missed a single shift. Each brush carried the faint scent of peppermint, real peppermint oil, not the ersatz pine needle extract of the Reich. The women sniffed the wrappers the way starving men once sniffed bread. Some hid the brushes inside their uniforms, terrified that the gift would be revealed as a cruel joke and taken away. Others brushed their teeth that night for the first time in 2 years, standing in the rain, because there was no roof, weeping as the bristles scraped away the black decay of total war. In the weeks that followed, interrogators noticed a subtle but unmistakable shift. Female prisoners who had always been among the most ideologically hardened, many had volunteered for service in the East, proud to free men for the front. Yet once the toothbrush entered their possession, resistance began to crumble. A report from the U.S. 7th Army's Psychological Warfare Branch, dated 14 June 1945, observed, "The distribution of personal hygiene items has proven more effective than leaflets in producing cooperative attitudes among female detainees." Possession of an American toothbrush appears to generate cognitive dissonance so severe to reconcile with continued belief in National Socialist superiority. One documented exchange survives in the declassified files of Camp King. A 24-year-old Viennese secretary asked her American interrogator through tears, "If your country can make so many toothbrushes, why did you need to fight us at all?" The officer answered simply, "Because you stopped making them for yourselves." The woman nodded slowly, as though a 12-year spell had been broken by 6 words. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the toothbrush worked its quiet subversion. It whispered that abundance was not weakness, that democracy could outproduce tyranny even in the smallest things. Women who had saluted the swastika with fervent pride now slept with the brush beneath their thin pillows, touching the smooth plastic handle in the dark barracks like a child touches a forbidden toy. Some began to trade cigarettes for extra brushes, not to use but to hoard, to prove to themselves that the moment had been real. By autumn of 1945, the American authorities noticed that German female prisoners released on parole returned to collecting camps voluntarily if they heard that another distribution was planned. They came back for soap, for chocolate, for combs, but most of all for the toothbrush. It had become their private proof that the world could be gentle again. Years later, in the quiet suburbs of the new Federal Republic, elderly women would open drawers and carefully unwrap the faded cellophane to show grandchildren an object kept for half a century. A blue and red plastic toothbrush, bristles long since worn to stumps, cellophane yellowed but intact. They never spoke of Stalingrad or the firestorm over Hamburg. They spoke of the day in the rain when an American soldier placed a new toothbrush in their hand and, without knowing it, handed them the first undeniable evidence that their empire of blood and iron had been defeated by a nation rich enough to care about clean teeth. And so the smallest artifact of victory traveled farther than any tank or bomber. It slipped through the barbed wire, past the watchtowers, into the souls of the defeated, and lodged there like a splinter of light. Long after the flags were lowered and the trials concluded, the toothbrush remained, silent, ordinary, devastating, whispering the dangerous truth that freedom is not merely the right to vote, but the ability to give even your enemy something new to hope for, wrapped in cellophane. A taste of peppermint on the tongue of a world reborn.